Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Hare Krishna Project podcast. This is episode number 96, just 4 episodes away from our 100th episode. A big thank you to everyone who continues to tune in from all over the world. As you know, we've got a global audience. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, it's great to have you with us. Don't forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, please do not forget to hit that all-important subscribe button, which is right down here, where you can keep updated about future podcasts from the Hare Krishna Project. And if you're watching this on Facebook, please do not forget to like or follow the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page, so you're also kept updated about this podcast, other podcasts, and things we do in the future as well. As you know, I'm keen to have a diverse variety of guests, and we travel now because of the internet. You can go anywhere, any day in the world. And today we're off to Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, one of my most favorite places. It's a delight to welcome Duryodhana-Guru Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Prabhu. Nice to be here. Thank you.
It's great to have you with us. Duryodhana-Guru Prabhu. Let's start with a nice, easy question. Please tell us a bit about you and where you're from.
I'm from Canada originally, and I joined the ashram in Canada. I was raised in Saskatchewan, and Saskatchewan's the middle of Canada, where it's the coldest. It's on the prairie, and anybody who visits Canada makes certain they do not land the plane there, where I grew up, so to speak. I had an awakening at age 19, and I began to do meditation and yoga. And of course, and then I began to read books. All the books that I had read were impersonalist books. They were available, and slowly but surely. And then having ordered spiritual sky incense, and had it shipped to my house, and reading the packet, it said, well, you can order the, what is it? What's the album they have? I forget the name of it now. But that George Harrison produced, you know?
My Sweet Lord, but the...
No, the one with all the devotees. I can't think of the name of it. But anyway, I ordered that, and I listened to that constantly. And then when they sent that, they sent an offer to order Bhagavad Gita as it is. So now I'm 22. I ordered Bhagavad Gita as it is by Prabhupada, and I read it cover to cover one summer. I get out my dinghy, I go down to the lake, I paddle out to the middle of the lake in the beautiful weather, and I read Bhagavad Gita, and everything changed. That was it. I was sold. How am I ever going to meet the devotees? No one's ever going to come here. That same summer, I went downtown one day, and there they were on the corner, passing out incense. 2 of them. Yojapati, who's, I think he's called B.V. Govinda now, Swami.
Yeah.
And Balakrishna. And they said, I told them, you know, and they said, well, you got to come to the bus. We got the big blue bus here. We'll make prasad and we'll have kirtan. I said, great. Tell me when. The same day. They blew our minds. Went with my girlfriend. And they blew our minds with, I've never eaten food like that in my life. That vegetarian food was wonderful. I had already become a vegetarian. And it kind of went from there. And then a few months later, I said, I can't do this anymore. I got to join the ashram. And my girlfriend and I moved to Toronto, and we joined there in 73. So right now, and then I went from there to Los Angeles when Prabhupada said that he says, I've written all these books. He says, why you are not publishing? And he says, you know, I'm not going to be here forever. We need to publish these books much more quickly. So then they put out a newsletter. We need more help. We need English editors, Sanskrit editors, artists, sculptors, you name it. Well, I saw that letter and my eyes bugged out because I already had started studying Sanskrit on my own in the Toronto temple. Krishna gave me a grammar book. Here you go. All right, great. And then we went to Chicago in 75 for my second initiation. Myself and my girlfriend now had become my wife, because if I wanted to talk to her, they told me I had to marry her. Otherwise, I couldn't speak to her. I said, but she's my spiritual compatriot. Yeah, well, you're a brahmachari, you can't talk to her. So we got married. So we went to get our second initiation in Chicago from Prabhupada. And I went and visited the Sanskrit editor, Nitai at the time, and Hare Swami, who was his secretary. And I said, I'd love to join the Sanskrit department. They said, well, do you know any Sanskrit, Prabhu? I said, well, I've been studying it on my own. Oh, I see. So they took the Bhagavatam, Sanskrit, put it in front of me, said, okay, Prabhu, read. So I started reading. Yeah, it's not that I knew what everything meant, but I read, and they said, oh, Prabhu, that's very good. Okay, you can join the Sanskrit department. Really? Yeah. We'll get you a plane ticket. You can leave tomorrow. Tomorrow? I'm flying to LA from Chicago? Yes, Prabhu. Is that all right? I said, well, I don't know about my wife. Well, your wife can join you later. All right, okay. But there's only one problem. I'm getting initiated by Prabhupada tomorrow. Second initiation. Oh, okay, Prabhu. Then we'll do it. We'll get the ticket for the day after. How's that? And that was it. And off I went. And that was July 75. So I was in the Sanskrit department, 75, 76, 77. By 76, I became the head of the Sanskrit editorial department in LA.
Wow.
And we did, we translated, not Prabhupada translated, excuse me. We edited Prabhupada's translations so that everything looks the way it looks in the books according to, our standards. And we worked on the tail end of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Antya Lila. And I didn't know a lot of Bengali at that stage. And then we did cantos in the Bhagavatam. We did cantos 4 through 9. So that was quite a few. And then Prabhupada left us, you see. So then by 78, I was laid off. And I had to come to terms again with the real world, the illusory world. So anyway, I was there for most of my life. I lived in LA. And then I had studied Sanskrit, so that led to translating the sanskaras. You know the sanskaras? And so all the Vedic sacraments that you do in terms of conception and first grain ceremony, the naming, everything, anaprashana, jata karma. And I was first guy to translate all that and make it available. But back then it wasn't widely available. A lot of devotees wouldn't want to do it anyway. It's too much work. It's too much, And then I got into astrology because we couldn't do the first samskara impregnation, which is called nishika in Sanskrit, unless you knew where the planets were and the constellations where the planets were in order to do it at the right time. So I had no choice but to study astrology. And back then, I dabbled with astrology when I was younger, but I didn't know there was a Vedic astrology. So then I immersed myself in that so I could figure out the best time to do things so they would be more successful. And it was really based on the samskaras. So one thing leads to another. And the next thing you know, all the devotees in the community, Prabhu, can you look at my birth chart, Prabhu? Can you look at my birth chart? Like this, And it sort of blossomed from there. And I tried doing different things. And then when I was, 39, 40, what am I going to do when I grow up? kind of thing. And my friend said to me, well, you should do the astrology. You seem to be pretty good at that. And I said, well, I don't really want to be an astrologer. I'm not really an airy-fairy guy. I'm a very philosophical guy. I'm quite grounded when it comes to that. Yeah, well, I think people would appreciate it. So I had an internal struggle. And I said, okay, I'll try it. I'll try to do it in a business-like manner. I'm not really a businessman by nature. And that's what I did. And it just took off. Next thing I know, I'm flying all over the world and I'm meeting people. I'm on TV and I'm on radio and they're writing about me in newspapers. And I'm doing all these charts for people. So that kind of took on a life of its own.
These are Vedic astrological charts.
Oh, yes. I figured out very quickly that the Vedic astrology is more accurate and more effective. So right from the beginning, I was using Vedic, not Western. So I've been doing Vedic astrology for almost 47 years. Next year, in a month, it'll be 47 years.
And did mainstream, you mentioned that you were kind of going everywhere and everyone was taking an interest in what you were doing. Was that because at the time, particularly, that no one else was doing Vedic astrology, or not in the way that you were?
Oh, I think I can say this honestly, that I was one of the, white-skinned pioneers of Vedic astrology in North America. From 1977.
Wow.
Is when I started. So Vedic astrology is now huge in the world. But the pioneers in America were not so much the Indian astrologers. It was us. We were studying the Indian astrologers. We were studying the classic books, such as, Brihat Parashara, Hora Shastra, etc. So I had the advantage because I can read the shlokas in both English and Sanskrit. So I was a bit ahead of the game as far as that was concerned, But yeah, it somehow took on a life of its own, and here I am. I'm still doing it because
all these years later. All these years
the
later.
the demand only seems to increase, not decrease.
So can you tell us a bit, because some of our viewers and listeners won't know much about Vedic astrology in terms of what it is and what it involves, and you've been very successful at it for almost 47 years. Could you tell us a bit about what Vedic astrology is and how does it work? And I think you run workshops as well, don't you? Or kind of.
Well, I've done a lot of teaching, but I haven't done a lot recently in Vedic astrology. I do have one prominent student that I have taught. In fact, he's now living in London. He's an Irish person, and he's now living in London. He's actually devotee. Anyway, Vedic astrology is the original system of astrology dating back to the time of creation. It is known as a divine science. What does that mean? Divine science means it wasn't invented by man. It was invented by God. So whenever the planets were set into motion, which of course is the time of creation, and as we know, creation is cyclical. It's not like the concept of lifespan in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. You're born, you live a life, you die, that's it. We're done. We go to heaven, go to hell, whatever. No, this is cyclical. It just comes. It's just like the seasons. So it's a divine science because no man could have invented it. Just like palmistry is a divine science, like numerology is a divine science from that point of view. So it comes from the Vedas. I'm sure most of your guests know that. The Vedas are books of knowledge written in the Sanskrit language, primarily dealing with the science of karma, yoga, reincarnation, and self-realization. Having studied both Western and Vedic systems, I find the Vedic system to be more accurate, more effective. Subsequently, I've used it now exclusively for almost 47 years. there's a difference in calculation between the two systems, which means that some of the planets will end up in different signs. And in the Western chart, people say, "Oh, you're a Taurus?" Well, you might be a Taurus, or you might be an Aries. Okay, so the calculation difference about 23 degrees off, and the Vedic calculation is correct, and the Western calculation is incorrect. If you say that to Western astrologer, they get very angry very quickly, or they take offense. Well, modern day astronomers will tell you that the Vedic calculation is the correct calculation. Okay? And the Western calculation is the incorrect calculation. And the astronomers will not call it Vedic. They will refer to it as sidereal astrology, which means star-based, as opposed to Western, which is called tropical astrology. Okay, so it is the correct system, and I didn't take their word for it. I tested it out so I could discover whether or not it was, and that's what I discovered, and so I've been using it ever since. Another way to measure this is there have been many Western astrologers who, having been exposed to Vedic, have stopped using Western and gone to Vedic. Many. I don't know one Vedic astrologer that stopped using Vedic and went to Western. Not one, after all these years. So that kind of speaks for itself. My method, what I do is completely different than what anybody else does. Yeah, I mean, I use the same principles and this and that, but it's like anything anybody does. Over time, you enter into it. Initially, when you do something like astrology, you say, well, okay, the sun is in Gemini, that means this. And then the moon is in Taurus, that means that. So we're looking at what are the ingredients of the cake? There's a whole list of ingredients. Is that the cake? No, those are the ingredients. So the list of the planets and the signs and the houses tells us all that. Is it correct? Yes. But what's the finished product? The finished product is the birth chart. So initially, when you start learning, that's how you do it. Okay, well, he has sun in Virgo, so that means this. Okay. Well, what's it mean as it all coalesces together? So after a while, the chart just goes like this to you. And you see it as a complete whole, and you're looking at the person having taken, you're not really thinking about all the details. It's just presenting itself to you as an embodied person. It's like anything you do. If you're a musician, I used to be a professional musician years ago, and you learn the basics, you learn the fundamentals, and you get better and better at that as you play. And then one day you get to the point where you're not playing the music plays you. And this is no different. It's the same thing as you get a high-end carpenter, a craftsman. He knows how to do all these things, but when he's on that level, he's not doing it. It's being done through him. Just like we have revelation, realization, epiphany when it comes to spirituality. And then you just go, oh my God, I never thought of that before like this. This is a major revelation. Yeah, you read stuff in a book that brought you to this point, but now you've just had a realization, which takes you to a whole other level. And the devotees and other spiritual people know exactly what I'm speaking about, because we've all had it. If we haven't had it, why not? Get out of your own way would be my advice. So it's kind of like that. But yeah, my approach is different. You develop your own. It's like anything. You develop your own style. If you want to be a painter, you're going to have your own style. If you want to be a writer, you have to have your own voice. Correct? So.
And in terms of that, leads us on nicely onto the next question. In terms of writing, I think you've published 4 books. You're a successful author.
I published 3 books.
3 books. Okay.
And the other one is yet to be published, but it's pretty much finished.
So tell us a bit about those books. What are they about, and what inspired you to write them?
Well, I've been very keen on leadership, government leadership, politics in the sense of how do you run a country? So I've studied a lot of Niti Shastra, which is proper behavior and conduct, and I've studied a lot of Rajadharma, which is the path of the kings, of leaders, the kings, or if you want Kshatriyas, as we know, they're the political side of life. It's the people who are in charge of organization and management of society, and the protection and the welfare of the people. Correct? So I did a translation of, I don't know, I think there was like 11 Shastras from Sanskrit into English, The Way of Kings. And I had written, Way of Kings means Rajadharma. I had written a little purports, little commentaries. And it was published by Putnam in New York in 1991. But they didn't want my commentaries. All they wanted were the verses, like little what do they call those, pithy sayings, So that got done, but they, which is characteristic of publishing companies, they said, yeah, we're going to publish this under the religion banner. I said, it's not religion. This is not religion. This is, you want to publish this under business or management or something like that. This is what this is for. This will help these people. They didn't listen to me. They put it under religion. Didn't work under religion. Anyway, that was done. Then I wrote another one through using stream of consciousness writing. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not. No.
When you get up in the morning, you just came out of the dream world, the dream state, and what is it, Sushupti or Swapna? No, I can't. Swapna, I think, is dream. And you're not quite awake yet. You're not in full consciousness like you will be. Sometimes it takes people a little longer to wake up than others. Anyway, right at that time is you're still moving between 2 worlds. So what you do, you sit down and you start writing. You don't think. You're not trying to figure something out like you would in your conscious mind, especially if you're writing a book on astrology, for example. You just allow the sentence to appear. Like, for example, the bird knew that he would never see this nest again. She was gone, and he'd never return. There's the first sentence. So what's the rest of it? No, give me the next sentence. I don't know what's going to happen. That's stream of consciousness writing. So I wrote an entire book like that, short stories, called Rescuing the Infinite and Other Unanticipated Tales. That was the next one. I should say, before those two, I wrote Introduction to the Balaram Mridanga.
Nice.
So that was when they first produced the Balaram Mridanga in LA. They came to me because I was a drummer, and they knew I was, and I also was fairly accomplished in Mridanga, and I had studied tabla with Alaraka, the tabla player for Ravi Shankar, which to younger people here, they won't know what any of that means. But Ravi Shankar was a sitar player, very famous in India. And this was real 60s. stuff. I was in LA in the 60s, my friends. Okay. So, yeah, and I used to meet all these famous musicians, the Indian ones. I used to actually get them gigs at the temple and organize their recording sessions and things like that, because I was kind of in charge of that in LA for a while. Anyway, so they needed a book and a tape to go with the mridanga. So I did it. I wrote it. So I don't ever know what became of the tape, but I still have copies of the book. Not the book itself, but the pages. I made copies of them. So if anybody wanted them, so I wrote that. The most recent one is called Sun Man, Moon Woman, 7 Steps to Harmonious Relationships. And that one is on the verge of being published, but not, I'm kind of dragging my feet on that one, but it's pretty much finished.
And
go ahead.
Where did you get that kind of love for writing from? Did one day you wake up and think, I want to write a book, or have you always wanted to write? Where did that enthusiasm and that passion for writing come from?
Well, I mean, communication is a very big thing for me. It's much easier for me to communicate like this than it is to sit down and write, because sometimes I write and sometimes I'm distracted, just my nature. But there's other things that I've done that I need to write about that I haven't. So if I'm going to do it, I better hurry up, because, I'm in my mid-70s now. So I don't know how much longer I'll be here. Anyway, it's just about really educating people or sharing what you've learned. It's Raja Dharma. I mean, you can see what's going on in the world. And as Prabhupada has pointed out consistently about the political classes, this is Kali Yuga. So it's the age of conflict, corruption, and hypocrisy. Hypocrisy you will see in pretty much every government there is. There are people assuming positions for which they have no qualification. They have no training. They have no background. And they're handling a portfolio or a ministership for something that they're being given because of party loyalty. I mean, it's absurd. And a lot of them make a proper mess of it. Well, I think of our friend here, Boris Johnson. What was this guy up to? I mean, you guys have had what, 3 or 4 different prime ministers in the last 3 years?
Yeah, there was a period last year, 2022, we had 3 prime ministers in 3 months.
I rest my case, Your Honor.
Yeah. I think so probably without
people need to know how to look after people. I'll just give you one quote. It says in Raja Dharma that the king cannot exact a tax on the people without giving them protection from within and without. What does that mean? Within means against disease, to protect them from disease. That means the healthcare system. Without means from criminals and invaders. And unless he's doing that successfully, he is not allowed to exact a tax. Well, go down to Downing Street and tell them that, see what they say. They're not going to listen to that, are they? And it's even, here it's like, to me, it's kind of a comedy festival, the government they have here. But nobody's laughing.
Actually, just talking about that, I know we were meant to be talking about devotional topics, but a friend of mine said to me a few months ago, we never hear about the Republic of Ireland on the news because nothing ever seems to happen there. It's such a quiet, peaceful. And then obviously recently it was in the news with the incidents in Dublin, and all of a sudden it's the top story on the UK news. riots in Dublin. Couldn't believe it.
Oh yeah, they were pretty serious.
Where are you in Dublin or kind of nearby or?
I'm in Dublin, but I'm in way. I'm not. I'm about 45 minutes from the city center.
You're in the countryside, the beautiful Irish countryside.
Well, my wife and I lived. My Irish wife and I lived in the Irish countryside for most of our lives together. We just celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary last July. And but we were renting, you see. So then we bought a property and we could not get permission to build a house on our property. We tried twice. So we're in a converted garage right now, which we thought we'd been in for a year, but we've been in for almost 5 years, trying to find a house, which is very hard to do right now. So karma, sometimes you get good karma, sometimes not so. So if you want to go back to astrology teaches us about our lessons. Why are we here? What are we here to learn in this lifetime? Humans are in this world largely for 2 reasons: to fulfill desires and to learn lessons. We have free will. We all do. So free will, you're free to learn your lessons or not. And if you don't learn them, you can come back again and again and again. But the chart will point out your weaknesses, your strengths, everything. And what you're here to learn in life, your abilities, your talents. Sometimes people will do things that, for example, I'll give you an example. I ask a person what they do. They tell me they're in sales. I said, how's it going for you? Yeah, like that. I look at the chart. I can see Mercury, which is sales and marketing and merchandising, all of that, is their weakest planet. So what are they playing to? Their weakness. And then I point out a strong planet and tell them, this is your best planet. What are you doing along those lines? Oh, nothing, So we're kind of missing the point. The other thing that astrology will point out to you is your dharma. Your dharma is your path in life. What are you here to do? How do you act in harmony with your nature? Your dharma is your nature. So that you can be fulfilled as an individual and you can make a contribution to the world around you. That's the win-win situation. Good for you, good for the rest of us. So that's your life purpose, and it brings meaning to your life. And if you don't do that, you're probably not going to be all that happy or frustrated, or over time you become miserable and resentful, or you have a midlife crisis, or you become ill. So astrology will help you with also the planetary periods, shows us exactly, according to Vedic astrology, how the karma is unfolding throughout the entire life, 120 years. So that's all there. And you can sort of cut to the chase very, very quickly when you see that and get on the wavelength of doing something that is complementary to your nature. Prabhupada uses the example, the dharma of sugar is sweetness. How do you separate sugar and sweetness? Impossible. So same thing. What are the qualities about you that reflect you, that cannot be separated from you? Are you doing that? When I present classes here at the temple in Dublin or in Northern Ireland, I'll just say to them, well, how many here are doing their dharma? I'll explain it like I just did. 1 or 2 hands will go up out of a whole room full of people. And until you do that, you're not there yet, or you're searching, or you're not fulfilled. So it's probably one of the best, if not the best, method to discover that is Vedic astrology.
Can we talk a bit about and you may have already kind of touched on it, I think, but can we talk a bit about your guided healing meditations? I was reading about them on your website. Very impressive website, by the way. And I will put a link to your website with this podcast, both on YouTube and Facebook, so people can look at it. But I want to chat briefly about guided healing meditations. It's a method of meditation and personal discovery that you've developed. And I think I'm pretty sure you've had a lot of success with these guided healing meditations. Can you tell us a bit about them and what they involve?
Yeah. Well, I could tell you how it came about when I had the vision, because it was a vision given to me.
Yes, please.
And then I'll tell you how the meditations work.
Okay.
My marriage to my wife, who joined the temple with me, my first wife, came to an end in about 87, somewhere around there, 88. And coincidentally, I also had a very good job at that time. And I got laid off, not because I did anything wrong, just that it came to an end as well. So there I was. It was, my marriage ended because I had left my marriage. And I won't get into all that. My ex-wife is a wonderful lady, a wonderful devotee, and a wonderful mother. But, we were kind of pressured to get married. Let's just put it that way. So I thought to myself, you say you're a bhakti yogi, practice, learning love and devotion, and yet you just hurt the three people closest to you: your wife, your son, and your daughter. You cause more pain. How can you be a bhakti yogi? And that was a stark revelation for me, because I didn't want to hurt anybody, but you know what's going to happen. And when I left the marriage, I moved 5 minutes away. So I was still very much there with the kids, and my wife and I always cooperated. So all that was good. But I decided to do a moon meditation on the full moon for 12 full moons for 1 year, because the moon is the heart, the mind, the emotions, subconscious mind, the emotions. And so if you're not loving, we got to look at the moon. Furthermore, the moon is a key planet for me. Furthermore, what dynasty was Krishna born in? The lunar dynasty. That's where he comes from. And I know somehow or other that's where I come from. I know there's a connection there. So I went on the full moon night. I sat in meditation and I started to do the mantras. I did a whole bunch of moon mantras, and that's fine. The next morning I woke up and I thought I'd just do some meditation. I was chanting, but I wasn't chanting at that moment. I just wanted to clear my mind, do some meditation. In the meantime, I had been studying Jungian psychology on my own. I'd read many, many books on the subject and became very familiar with it, and really helped me with astrology. Yet I couldn't do the kind of meditation that they had said. It either comes through dream or it comes through what they call the waking dream, where you're awake, but you go into a state of deep relaxation, meditation, and an alpha state, and you allow the subconscious to present you with various images or take you on a journey. I'd never done that. So this was the following morning. So I went to meditation, try to clear everything. And in front of me appeared a stone archway. And don't move that out of there. You're not doing that. You're doing something else right now. You're just trying to clear your mind. Again, the stone archway. 3 steps going up. 3 is a mystical number, beginning, middle, and end, as we know. So it's a number of shift and change, or masculine, feminine, and then the result of that coming together. So again, the archway. So I said to myself, what's wrong with you? Walk through the archway. What are you waiting for? I walked through this archway, and I'm in a absolutely round canyon, completely round. And along 180 degrees semicircle, you have a little stone fence, if you will. And I look up, and it's a perfect circle of a blue sky, perfect circle. Then I look across, and I'm seeing all these plants, but they're not coming from the bottom. They're growing out of the side of the rock. It's all rock. Wow, that's very strange. I look over, down into, and there is a chasm with no bottom. It goes on infinitely. So I'm looking like that. Then I look over to the end of the balcony, and there's a sage dressed in saffron, piled hair, white and beard. And he's with his stick or his dunda leaning against the wall. And he's up on a couple of steps, and he's sitting in meditation. Now you got to remember, my whole life has just been turned upside down. So I walked over to him, and I went, Pranam. He turns to me and says, so, you finally come. What? He said, look what it took to get you here. He says, are you ready now? I said, ready for what? He said, are you ready to do what you've come here to do? Yeah. I said, good. We'll start a month from now on the full moon. And I will initiate you into this, and I will teach you. And I'll see you in 30 days. And I said, can I ask your name? He says, yeah, it's Atri. Oh, but I heard that before. It's the name of a sage. That was the end of the meditation. I came out, I was stunned. And Atri is who? Do you know? He's one of the 7 sages, or has been in the past, and he's the father of the moon god.
Wow.
So there it was. So I met him, and then for the next year, he took me on these different journeys and adventures. And at the end of it all, he said to me, okay, now go help people with this and take them through it and help them to heal and shift their lives. So that I've been doing for 36 years, and I've done it around the world. I've hundreds and hundreds of clients with which I've done that. And one of the things I've learned over the years is how to take people into past lives, not just past life regression, but when you see it all based in astrology, I can see what's holding them back, particularly if they're coming into this lifetime carrying guilt. And a lot of people are. And if they're carrying guilt, unconsciously, they are attracting to themselves people and circumstances that will do what? That will punish them, hold them back, sabotage them, or make them feel like they're not worthy or they're not deserving to go forward in life in some meaningful way. So in our world, guilty people must be what?
Punished.
That's the justice system, my friend. Guilt and punishment. I can take them into a past life and show them what they did and ask if they're remorseful, genuinely ask for forgiveness from whoever they hurt. And they'll get that forgiveness. And then number 2, the self must forgive self. Because usually people say, yeah, well, God's punishing me. No, God's not punishing you. You're punishing you. This is your karma. Don't pin it on God. Don't pin it on Krishna. This is your karma. And there's something you need to learn here and something you need to release and give yourself permission to become who you are in this lifetime. So that's one of the things. But I mean, I've done all kinds of different meditations. We can do just about any area of life. And you know.
Do you do these on a regular basis, these guided healing meditations?
Yeah.
With businesses, business leaders?
I do them with clients.
Yeah.
You know, I have a lot of clients that are at the top of their fields in every kind of field you can imagine. So I have a lot of executives, a lot of powerful, wealthy people, and people who make a difference in life and whose decisions affect a lot more people. Because that's really what I'm about. If you can affect or have an impact on people who are in charge of a lot more people, you're bringing light to a lot more people indirectly by bringing the light to those. You know, I had this executive, somebody gave him a gift to talk to me, lovely guy. So I talked to him down, he's in Mexico. And I said, yeah, this is the chart of a highly successful guy. Your business is going very well, right? Mm-hmm. Young guy too. Yeah, he's like still in his 20s. And I said, I should just start a chart of a millionaire, a multimillionaire. Not that money's the purpose of life. I mean, it isn't. Like, this is to understand the realm in which you can operate. And I said, are you that? He says, yeah. 100 million at this point. I said, yeah, well, that meets this criteria. It was real nice guy. Mexican people are lovely people. Very heart-centered.
I was very impressed. You sent me an email with some of the clients that a list of some of the clients that you've worked with. Yeah. And it was so these are representatives within those organizations.
Correct. The organizations do not hire me.
Yeah. But
I work with executives within those organizations representing different areas, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to name them all because it was quite a big list, and that's a compliment. That's a compliment to you and the work that you do. But you know, it's just some of the ones I picked out. Google, Barclays Bank. I have an account with Barclays. General Motors, American Express, Starbucks, Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, obviously very topical, well known now because we've had a pandemic recently. Yeah, Motorola, General Motors, quite a list of organizations that you've worked with, or executives within those organizations.
Right.
You know, and I'm sure that, you know, because organizations are about teams and teams working together. And if you can support in the way that you support people, if you can just support one individual, that, as you say, that has an effect on everyone within the team.
Yeah.
So maybe you should put your fees up because those businesses are doing well. It might be something to do with you.
Well, a lot of times it has something to do with me, you know. So I don't put my fees up. I don't look at myself as a corporate guy, you know, appearing in front of a corporation trying to help them make more money. You know, that's not exactly what I'm about. You know, I'm about what I've just explained, and my basis is more spiritual in nature. Now, I don't talk about spirituality with somebody who's not spiritual. I just try to get them to, if they're here, what you try to do is take them to the next step, whatever the next step may be. You can't take a person who's non-spiritual and then take them up 10 steps to spirituality. It's not going to work. You got to take one step at a time. Everybody almost universally goes up a step at a time. I will tell you this. The biggest deal I was called in on to get my opinion on was $21 billion.
Wow.
And they wanted my 2 cents on that one. So I give it to them.
Well done, you. Yeah. And in terms of how do you promote your services? Because, I mean, what
I don't.
Because in one sense, what you're doing is quite niche, isn't it? You know, in kind of
it's very niche.
in mainstream society, people that work for Google and Starbucks and Barclays are not, there isn't necessarily a notice on the staff room notice
No,
board
no,
saying,
no.
oh, is it?
You see a lot of people, even nowadays. I mean, I have government leaders. I have psychiatrists. I was a top psychiatrist in New York. I have professors of psychiatry in Ivy League schools who are my clients.
Mm.
And you know, you can't just, they're not going to say, yeah, well, I just talked to my astrologer. See, I've got people that work for the CIA and all kinds of different things, you know, and they're not going to talk like that. And it's their business what they want to share with others and what they don't. It doesn't matter to me. You know, what confirms is when people make a recommendation.
Yeah.
You know, they send me referrals. I don't promote myself. I don't need to. You know, I'm usually booked a month in advance. It's slowed down a little bit now. I'm only 2 weeks in advance lately, but the last 3 years it's been a month in advance. And even that is kind of way in advance, because you're going to find that people will have a greater tendency to change their appointment because X, Y, and Z is happening. You know what I mean? And I don't see as many people as I used to. You know, I've slowed down a little bit, not much. I work a 4-day week instead of a 5-day week.
And in terms of within the devotee community, is your work known about?
Oh yeah, widely. You know, I mean, there's many things in astrology. So we can do question charts, which is prashna. So should I go into business with so-and-so? Or what is the potential of my going into business with so-and-so? Or relationship with so-and-so? You can just do a question. But the date, the time, the place you are, you know, over email. We can do, I call them success charts, which are muhurta charts. When's the best time to start a business? Marriage, extremely important. Extremely important. The date and the time of the marriage, there's nothing more important than that, because the marriage is meant to last a lifetime. And believe me, if you don't do it, it can backfire. People just randomly pick marriage dates. It's one of the biggest mistakes. I mean, the marriage divorce rate is around 50%. What does that tell you? You know. And the other thing I do is, and this is mostly with the Indian people, because when the Indian couples, well, there could be one Indian and one non-Indian. And these are usually devotees, you know, and not always. And they say, well, we're trying to get pregnant. Okay. And mostly you want to look at the woman's chart, because that's key for that. This is a good time to get pregnant. This is not, et cetera, et cetera. You know, how's your fertility? We had a miscarriage, these kinds of things. And then, but always with the Indian, okay, we want a son. Of course you do. So I'm going to tell you about this one couple. I don't think I'm going to mention their names. They probably wouldn't mind. He's Indian and she's white. And she's from close by where you are. Anyway, they're an American, and they got a hold of me and said, we want to have a boy. I said, okay. So there's a way you can calculate. You need to calculate a conception chart. When to conceive. And you have to look at the main chart, then you have to look at the Navamsha, ninth part harmonic, because that chart has to be also successful, and that is a 10-minute window. That means he has to impregnate her within a 10-minute. He has to pass the seed into the womb at that time frame. Now, if you want a boy, you got to look at the ascendant, the sun, the moon, and Jupiter, and see if they're in masculine signs in the main chart and in the Navamsha chart. So you got to look at 8 different positions and see how many of the signs are masculine and how many are feminine. Now, even I give them a time frame, it doesn't mean they're going to get pregnant necessarily. Even though it may be a good chart, that doesn't mean she'll be pregnant. There's no guarantee on that, as we all know. So I gave them a time. Most of the signs were masculine. Boom. One time they tried, she got pregnant. We got a boy. A couple of years went by, got a hold of me again. Okay, we want another chart. And I said, what do you want this time? We want a boy. He said, the Indian devotee. Yes, of course you do. So I laughed. I did the same thing again. They did the same thing again. We got the same result again. Boy number 2.
Wow.
First time. We didn't have to do, a lot of times we have to do month after month after month because she doesn't get pregnant. So the third time, they got on to me. This is about a year ago, not so long ago. And they said, okay, we want another baby. Good. What do you want? A boy. I'm just laughing, And so there I start doing all the calculations. I get a hold of them. I said, look, I can't give you a boy. I got 6 feminine. In the time frame you're looking at, I got 6 feminine signs and 2 masculine. So we're not going to get a boy. We're going to get a girl. What are you going to do? Well, we'll talk about it. Okay. So they went ahead. She got pregnant first time again. That's 3 for 3. This just makes me smile because it's not easy to get pregnant. So, and then I happened to be in New York. I saw them both in New York a year ago, October. And Johnny B, Johnny B Harrison? Johnny B was having her concert there. We went to the concert. And I looked at the girl and I said, whoa, how's our baby? Because I participated in it, right? And she's laughing, he's laughing. Oh, yeah, really good. It's due like in a month, What do we get? Girl. So that's a very unique story.
Yes, it sounds very unique, and I've never heard that before in terms of an astrologer being able to give advice, astrological advice on the gender or the sex of a child.
I'm telling you, Prabhu, this is Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology, and I've been doing it for 47 years, but there's so much more to it. There's so much more. I mean, I feel like, yeah, you're just sort of scratching the surface. Yeah, a couple things. Yeah, that's, anybody who becomes really, really good at something, and it keeps opening and opening and opening to them and blossoming for them, truly knows that they're how much they don't know. And it really helps them to become humble, that they're being blessed with all this. And if I was sitting next to a sage, a Vedic sage, he'd be looking at me and telling me, you're coming along, So I may be something in some people's eyes, but I know in the grand scheme of things, no. So, one thing you don't want to develop is an ego, as we both know. Because an ego is embracing illusion and thinking, Kartaham iti manyate. I am the doer. No, you're not. You see where I'm sitting here, Prabhu? There's a reason I'm sitting here at the feet. So I just sit here and I'll let them say what needs to be said. And I just sort of get out of the way.
Well, as a very brief testament to Vedic astrology, so this podcast has been going for about 2.5, 3 years, and we've always had a good number of viewers or followers, but since July, the kind of viewing figures have really escalated and gone through the roof.
Well, you must have had some pretty good guests on.
Well, what happened was linked to Vedic astrology. I had one particular guest who was an astrologer based in the United States in July. And he wanted to tell me when astrologically was a good time to record the podcast, the day and the time and everything. So I allowed him. Usually I pick or I suggest dates, but I allowed him to completely choose the day and the time of the recording. And after the recording, he said, Narada Prabhu, things are going to go very well for you after this. And they have, I can absolutely assure you, in so many ways, not just this podcast, but other stuff, but things have gone so well. And I think about him a lot, actually, and the advice that he gave me, 5-6 months ago. So I've never officially, I've never consulted a Vedic astrologer, and I've never gone to an astrologer for advice on things in that sense. But yeah, I definitely vouch for it.
Narada Prabhu, after this, things are going to go exceptionally well for you. Because I already checked that when you suggested the date. Today's, yes.
Oh, really? Wow.
I wouldn't have agreed to this date. The moon is in Cancer today in its own sign. And the moon in Cancer is an absolutely beautiful position because it is heart opening. And it allows people to feel or to release what needs to be released emotionally, pain, negative emotion, any anger, frustration, resentment, criticism, blame, guilt. Make your list. This is a very healing influence. So I said, yes, we'll do it today. You invited me for today. And I immediately checked and I said, yes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Radha Krishna, is what I said. Nicely chosen.
Amazing. And that's I certainly, before we started the recording, that was the first thing I said. Wow, look at that painting, look at that picture. It's beautiful. Okay, Prabhuji, we've been chatting for well over an hour. It's been really good to hear your story and hear about your background, and hear what you're up to. I always love to meet interesting characters. Some people don't like being referred to as a character, but I'm not sure.
I don't mind.
I don't know what's wrong with the term personally. You're a very fascinating.
I mean, a character is a character, and then there's a character who's kind of a goofy guy. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and I've certainly found your story very inspiring, and how you seem to have linked very successfully kind of Vedic astrology with the business world, and you're using Vedic astrology to help business people and businesses grow and be successful in the material world. I don't know why I did that, but it's
That's right, in the material world. But can I point something else out? You see, if I was an airy-fairy type of guy, I wouldn't have those clients. I have to be able to meet them on their level. I have to be able to talk to them the way they talk or the way they're approached. So I have to be grounded, I have to be sound, and I have to make sense. And that's how it works. It's not like anybody can meet those people. They can't, because those people could see through you fairly quickly. If you're talking to them on this level, but those guys are on that level, it's not going to work. So you're going to have to figure out how to get up to that level to say something that's going to be meaningful and is going to bring about a shift in their life, what to speak of, predict something that actually happens for them. Or to tell them, if you do this, this is going to happen. Or if you do that, this is what you should do, because that's going to be successful, not that. And you got to be right. So you got to be right. I don't know. I haven't calculated it, but I think my success rate is 80 plus. I've got 340 pages of testimonials, 10 to a page.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's 3,000, isn't it? 300, that's 3,400. Yeah. Amazing.
From around the world.
Amazing. Well, hopefully after this podcast.
I have a joke about it. I have it right here. It's one of my files on my desktop. And my joke is, okay, so now when I pass, I want you to print out this entire document. I said to my wife, I've also told my kids from my first book, you got to print out this document. And then when you put me in the furnace, you put the document on top of me, and it goes up in flames along with me. And this is my letters of reference when I cross over.
Yes.
It comes with me.
Did you bring any references with you? Yes.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I did.
The pearly gates.
Pearly gates, my friend.
Prabhuji, it's been fantastic to have you as a guest this week.
Thank you.
I've certainly found your story very inspiring, and I'm hoping you'll get a lot more of those positive testimonies after this. I'm going to put a link to your website onto the description for this podcast, both on the advert and on the film itself. I think what I'll do now, I'll just say goodbye to the viewers at home, and then you and I can have a very brief.
Yeah. May I say one thing?
Please go ahead.
The best way to get a hold of me, they can go onto my website, but the best way to get a hold of me is through my email, which is drewjlawrence@gmail.com.
Can I put that on the description for the?
Please put that on there, so then they know exactly where to go. Because I don't book people on multi-platforms, it's too hard to keep track of it.
Yeah, I certainly find that when we arranged this podcast, I'm the same with. I prefer much more of a simple approach. I'm not a massive fan of having long phone conversations. I just find they get in the way of my day.
No, I don't do that.
I love email. You just, it's all in one space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and now we've got Facebook, and we've got WhatsApp, and we've got Instagram. It's too much. I mean, it's fine, but I don't want to book everybody on all these platforms.
Well, Duryodhana-Guru Prabhu, it's been fantastic to have you as guest number 96 on the Hare Krishna Project podcast. I really appreciate you giving your time this week. So I'll just say goodbye to the viewers and listeners at home, and you and I can have a very brief debrief after. So thank you to everyone for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're watching this on Facebook, please do not forget to like or follow the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page. Leave some constructive feedback. I love to receive feedback, but it should be constructive. And just a reminder to everybody that I love to hear from you, but I can't always respond to every single message. So just a reminder on that. Until next week, I'll see you all soon. Thank you. Hare Krishna.